A damaging new report out that President Biden is growing frustrated with his staff in the White House and their efforts to, quote, rush to explain something the president has said, and that the president worries the so-called cleanup campaign makes him look weak. The White House has walked back several of the president's statements. You've seen them here on Outnumbered. And the next comments that may be cleaned up are the remarks he made yesterday about gun control. Biden suggested banning one of the most common and widely used handguns, and his reasoning included some questionable claims about bullets as well as the Second Amendment.
A .22 caliber bullet will lodge in a lung, and we can probably get it out, may be able to get it and save the life. A 9mm bullet blows the lung out of the body. So the idea of these high caliber weapons is there's simply no rational basis for it in terms of about self-protection, hunting. The Constitution, the Second Amendment, was never absolute. You couldn't buy a cannon when the Second Amendment was passed.
So, Joe Concha, this is from FoxNews.com. Let's pull it up. The implications of this statement, because it's easy to get lost in the nuance, but here's the implication. According to the ATF's annual Firearms Manufacturing and Export Report, pistols produced in 9mm comprised of approximately 56.8% of new pistols produced in 2019, making up about 42% of pistols produced between 2010 and 2020. In other words, his assertion would be banning handguns of some sort. I don't think that's what he intended to say, would run afoul of the Second Amendment. There may be another cleanup by his staff. We'll find out in the briefing.
Yeah, and, you know, we're going to move it from aisle 5 to aisle 6, Kaylee, I think at this point. Everything's in aisle 5. Let's give aisle 6 a little bit of credit. Let's be different, shall we? But again, the fact that the president is frustrated that his handlers, his communications team behind the scenes are undermining him and constantly doing those cleanups, if he's the commander-in-chief, he should be telling those folks with no ambiguity that when I say something, I mean it. And you are not to clarify something that, in my opinion, doesn't need clarification. I'm the guy who got elected, not you. So there also needs to be some kind of accountability, by the way. Given that this president is polling at what? In the economy in the 30s on his handling of that, in the 20s on his handling of inflation, in the low 20s on his handling of the border, and the fact that only 1 in 4 independents approve of the job that he's doing, somebody's got to go. And that somebody is Chief of Staff Ron Klain, who loves to retweet folks like Joy Reid and Jen Rubin when he's not playing the role of Chief of Staff. He's like a baseball manager for a team that's 30 and 71. And such a firing would send a message to other White House officials that this failed messaging, these failed policy proposals are simply not going, and we have to change the team around us now, because whatever we've been doing, it ain't working.
Well, to that end, Emily, NBC reporting that Ron Klain will likely be out, probably on his own accord after the midterms, that there could be some sort of West Wing shakeup. And there was really this eye-opening assertion buried about halfway into the piece. Let's take a read. Beyond policy, Biden is unhappy about a pattern that has developed inside the West Wing. He makes a clear and succinct statement, that's arguable, only to have aides rush to explain that he actually meant something else. The so-called cleanup campaign, he has told advisors, undermines him and smothers the authenticity that has fueled his rise. Worse, it feeds a Republican talking point that he's not fully in command. The White House denies this is the case, but if Biden is frustrated with his aides continually cleaning up what he says, I don't blame him. I didn't run around cleaning up Trump's statements when he would say something. He was the commander-in-chief. He was calling the shots, not his press secretary.
Yeah, but Kaylee, you didn't need to. I think the fallacy here with this statement is the fact that he thinks he's being clear and concise to begin with. I mean, this is like a 500-pound person putting on a sweatshirt and being like, does this make me look fat? Like, it's not the sweatshirt, buddy. It's not the cleanup. It's what comes out of your mouth to begin with. It's absolute hogwash, and the fact that he thinks the issue is the cleanup campaign, he should actually be thanking them. Although I hear, Joe, what you're saying, that yes, if he wants to lay down the line and say, nope, the jargon that I say and the garble that I say stands, so be it, go ahead. Just leave the rest of us confused. And that ancillary point about it feeding the Republican talking point that he's not fully in command, the writing's in the wall, right? It's on the wall, however you say it. Now I'm the one that's speaking in word salad. But I don't think we need their cleanup campaign to show that he's not fully in command.
Harris, on the other hand, these gaffes are not just, I was once a truck driver. These gaffes are not, hey, something about corn pop. Some of these gaffes have deeply serious foreign policy implications. Let's take a listen to the 3 worst Biden gaffes and get your thoughts, Harris.
Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes,
You are.
that's a commitment we made. Russia will be held accountable if it invades, and it depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do, et cetera. But if they actually do what they're capable of doing with the force amassed on the border, it is going to be a disaster for Russia.
You know, when you listen to that, the really sad part is it's got a crescendo to it. You know, we started with Ukraine can never be evicted from Russia, all the way up to, you know, basically encouraging Russia to invade Ukraine, so at least he knows which country is invading which. But we went full circle there. And that is a sign of confusion. I'm sure that it's not leadership. But if it's confusing to us, can you imagine trying to clean up? And I don't think it's just aisles 5 and 6. I think it's the whole store. Can you imagine if you're tasked to doing that? And there is going to be friction behind the scenes. I don't even care about that. I just want to know what the truth is. And so the unfortunate part of all of this is we don't know what Joe Biden means and what he doesn't mean. You know, he said that bit about defending Taiwan many times, 3 now, that we would go to war for them if China moves in. Well, which one was the cleanup mistake? Which one was the lie? And which one was the truth? We have enough there now to begin to ask those questions. And that's really important, because if Ron Klain is all that changes, how do we know he wasn't pulling the levers? We don't know. I want to know who's writing the cards. He had them today again with the New Zealand Prime Minister. Made no sense whatsoever. And as a journalist, I usually can come up with, well, you know, he talked about this. It was spiraling. But somewhere in there was a bit of truth. That's the question for us now. Let's find the truth.
Yeah, Kennedy, we have about 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't even need that long. Yes, I think he is in rapid cognitive decline. If you've ever driven with a grandparent and they keep their left turn signal on for 14 miles, that's what we're dealing with. I also think that he is the one in control. He is the one in power, and that's what's scary, because he's not all there, but he's got full control of the dashboard, and that should give everyone pause. It also goes to show you why the vice president is even less popular than he is.